So do you have an agenda, or are we?
Well, it's going to be very informal, but we do
Okay.
have 3 things that we want to talk to you about.
Great.
So first of all, thank you for meeting with us, Supervisor Askew. I know you've been an amazing ally of Safe Ag Safe Schools for many years. Yes. So with us, our meeting more than anything, and I'm going to let the members introduce themselves. It's very informal. We have several just requests, but we're going to update you on meetings that we've had with Commissioner Hidalgo. We did meet with him on May 11th.
Oh, good.
Yes.
I look forward to
Our
hearing
first
about
meeting.
that.
But more than anything, we wanted to just keep you in the loop of the same conversation that we've been having, not only with Commissioner Hidalgo, but with Supervisor Lopez that we met with, Supervisor Alejo, Supervisor Church. We were just missing that piece to meet with you,
Okay.
and Supervisor Adams. And with you, we know that you're always an ally. We just wanted to update you more than anything.
Great.
Because the other 2 were a little bit tougher than anything to meet with, but I'll let you, as we move along, I'll let you know some of the, or even the members that participated in those meetings, some of the outcome that we had. But we'll start with introductions. So, Yaneli Martinez, I'm the new organizer with Safe Ag Safe School. Yay! Super excited. I get paid to do something that I love every
Isn't that
night.
awesome?
It is. It's
I
like
do
the best
too.
feeling.
I get paid to do work I love every day.
Right?
It's the best. It's the best. Okay.
So, yeah, and we'll introduce, I guess, te doy para ti al final. Ok, empezamos acá con las presentaciones, básicamente tu nombre y por qué estás aquí, porque eres una aliada, ¿verdad?
Yo estoy aquí porque me gustaría que hicieran un plan de sanitation para el agua y que no se usaran pesticidas en el área de producción de vegetales y de todo eso.
So she's here, she's hoping that there's a plan, and in that plan that there's 2 things. One is that there's like the district water sanitation, Department of Treatment for water, as well as that they would not use pesticides for the region.
Thank you.
And I just want to add, the reason she emphasizes that is because one of her daughters is an engineer for LA County Department of Sanitation, so she does the water district. So her biggest thing that she's been telling me is, where do they clean the water? Where's the water treatment? Like for the Salinas River. So that's her biggest thing, that she doesn't see any major water treatment happening in this region. And she's coming from LA, so.
Well, we need to get you over to Supervisor Monterey for a tour. Yeah. I mean, so anyway, yeah, yes.
So my name's Ana Barrera. I'm a teacher here in the Salinas Valley, and for me, I'm here because of what I see happening around with my students, with the issues of illness, an array of illnesses that, from intestinal, asthma, cancer, that I see in the youth. And so that to me is an alarming amount. I've taught throughout California, and just seeing what I've seen here, I expect more from our county officials to step on the environmental justice issues of doing some kind of reform, but also regulation. A lot of regulation needs to happen here. Right now with the global warming that we've seen, my school, Everett Alvarez High School, was evacuated because one of the local creeks had water running off. I think it was in January, I forgot what month it was, but they ended up having to close down the school, like in the middle of the day. Buses had to come in quickly to take our students, and all that water that filtered out into our football field was contaminated. So they had to really do a full, complete cleanup before they even had graduation there. But we're talking water that's coming with pesticides that's starting to lurk into our neighborhoods, like we saw what happened in Pájaro. And we need to really be considerate of the fact that this is also carrying dangerous pesticides. And so something needs to happen for the next coming rains.
My name is Horacio Mezquita. I live in the community of San Gerardo. We lost 3 of our wells because of fertilizers and pesticides that have been using for 70, 80 years, 100 years. And I have seen how people get sick on the long run and start getting tumors or cancer right there in the community. There's already been 7 people that die of cancer. There's 3 that are getting chemotherapy. The way that I see as a Monterey County resident is that we have to work in a way that we can create a county that can protect our water, our air, our soil, because the creeks and the river are getting full of sediments, and they also carry lots of nitrates and pesticides, and they end up over there at the sanctuary, and a lot of the issues of the droughts and climate change and the flooding that is happening. Some of the aquifers that belong on Prunedale, which is the Langley aquifer, the east side, the Corral de Tierra, they're not getting any benefits from the water that is coming out of the lakes and the river and Arroyo Seco. And even though we have a new law with the groundwater, the different sub-basins, they're gonna get divided because everybody wants to have the benefit of exploiting the water, but our residents that are in Prunedale, Corral de Tierra, east side, and the 400 aquifer where the seawater intrusion is coming, they're gonna end up paying more when all the investment that was done in the past as a one watershed is not working out. So
You say it all. You just said, we had a meeting this morning with the new director for the GSA, the new director and assistant director, and I mean, that was effectively the conversation that we had, so, yeah.
So the problem that I see is that the Spanish communities that are working in the fields, they're the ones that are getting more sicker than the ones that work in different industries. And the ones that are close in the farming camps, which used to be bracero camps, they're the ones that are getting at least 80% to 100% of the drift that is coming out of the pesticides, and also the fumigants that are contaminating the aquifers.
And you live in San Bernardino?
No, I moved out, but my father was one of the original creators of the co-op.
Okay.
But I went to work there when I was about 15, 16 years old, and we built 60 units, which is one of the co-ops in the whole United States that is sustainable and that is not expensive to live, even though we live in a place that is real high on property value. So those families, they're lucky to have a home, but at the same time, they're in a place where the industries are hurting them. And that's why we're trying to advocate not to be poison people or poison the environment.
Thank you. And where do you live now?
I live in Salinas.
You're in Salinas, okay.
And I farm.
You do farm, okay.
Yeah.
I know Horacio doesn't say, but he's part of the Monterey Water Keepers.
Yeah.
Oh, with Chelsea?
Yeah.
Okay.
And also I'm at the GSA. I'm at the advisory committee of the board.
You're on the advisory committee for, okay, I was that's where you live, I'm like which committee, like where are we plugging you in, are you district, which appointee are you?
I'm a disadvantaged community
Okay,
with the Environmental Justice Coalition.
with the Environmental Justice Coalition, okay.
I don't know, they move out there to another another county, but they used to work here, but I'm still working with the GSA since the beginning.
Uh-huh,
And I also work with the ALBA, where we teach farmers to become,
all that,
yeah,
Okay, yep, got it.
sustainable agriculture
okay,
with
got
no pesticides and no fertilizers that are oil-based.
okay, awesome, thank you. And thank you for being involved in all those other agencies and things, because having the interconnection of the voices, all these pieces touch each other, so, yeah.
Yeah, we are interconnected, everybody, and we also interconnected in the way we use the water and the way we use chemicals. So we need to be careful not to poison ourselves. And the kids that are coming, you know, we're the present and the future generations deserve a safe place to live.
So when we did the mural on our wall, you can see the names on the leaves. Those are all of the children of our staff. And Jane, we put Jane on there too. So sort of those that came before. And then it's just sort of this reminder that like we, you know, it's not about me and it's not about you. It's about, not even about them. Like it's, you know, a couple generations out. It's like how it's coming next. And if we're not thoughtful to that, like we're gonna leave them with nothing. So,
Right.
yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Wendy, Karen Cameron, and as a retired educator, I would double ditto everything that Anna said. I have seen the same lengthy list of illnesses, particularly asthma and allergies, from the children that I taught. I myself, as a returnee to Salinas, when I moved back to Salinas, I developed an extreme allergy to formaldehyde. That if you Google it, the first thing that comes up is pesticide. It sent me to the hospital for 10 days and then to Stanford. So I believe there's a direct correlation, although it could never be proven. Other preservatives as well, but formaldehyde in particular. My brother, who used to work with toxic substances, at the state of California for 30 years, made a comment to me, no way could you be allergic to formaldehyde, you haven't worked in that kind of an industry. Well, I haven't, I've worked as a teacher. But also what Herrera was saying, am I getting your name right? Horacio, excuse me, I knew it was wrong. That's why I said that, I guess. Horacio, I know you very well. As Horacio was saying, obviously, I mean, it's common sense that those most vulnerable are those working directly in the fields. So we oftentimes limit our perception of who's being polluted to that population. But I would suggest to you that we are all being affected. And as proof of that, well, first of all, to talk about the CDPR, California Department of Pesticide Regulation, it took a lot of urging to get any kind of data after they hid data for 5 years, and that's just on the total amount of pesticides used. That's really not thorough data in my opinion, because for instance they removed air monitoring from Salinas and most other places, so how do they truly know what the impact is? But at the same time we have the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment, which CDPR doesn't seem to agree with, let's say, in terms of their science. And I was at an environmental justice workshop meeting, which I'm going to leave this with you so you'll have all the data. Horacio was there also. And at that meeting, we got a hold of data that came from OEHHA in regards to Salinas. And they have 2 maps on pollution burden. This purplish one is the one that has to do with pesticide. And as you can see, most of the area is in deep purple, which is 90 to 100% pesticide accumulation. So with that said, my home is in the deep purple. So although I'm a teacher, not a farm worker, I believe I am directly impacted.
And how many of our schools are in the deep purple?
Oh, most all of them.
Most of them.
I mean,
Our
look
school,
at
I mean,
the area, and then
yeah.
water quality also is ugly. So basically they've never recognized this data nor want to talk about it. And I was told at this meeting that the governor had made it mandatory for each community to have an environmental justice meeting where they would share this kind of data. But I've never heard of anyone having any knowledge of any community meeting besides the one that we attended. And it was sparsely attended and not well publicized.
Is he speaking to the environmental justice element of the general plan?
It was the city of Salinas at the time, but I know that it's in the city in every city and also in the county, but we haven't been alert of more meetings. Only the one that we went one time and we
I
never.
got cut off the list, I don't know about
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
We never heard no more.
They had planned another meeting that they invited us to, and then it got canceled and canceled, and so it just kind of got brushed under the rug. So with that said, I feel like this is a topic that no one wants to talk about, and everyone wants to go around in silent denial. But when I look at Salinas and their cars that say, rich in value, rich in land, rich in values, I would question whose values, because it's not the values of the children or even the residents. And I think it's affecting pets too. I've had 2 dogs that I've had to put to sleep. One of them only at 1 year and 3 months old with a rare neurological disorder. That doesn't seem to add up. So, you know, can I prove any of this? No. But there's tons of us saying this and
Well,
not
we
being heard.
Do you have data available? We've spent years with UC Berkeley doing studies, like we have a lot of data
Chimacos,
that
thank you.
is very validating to what you're talking about.
But the state, quite
Recognizing,
frankly,
yeah.
acts as though it doesn't exist and carries on hand in hand with the chemical companies. I mean, at their last ruling, they decided, no, we don't like the OEHHA data, so we prefer the chemical company. And we'll go with directly what they ask for, not even compromise. That's ludicrous to me.
Like right?
Yeah, so they need to be called on it, and more awareness needs to be brought to that.
Thank you. There's an air filter right behind you too, if you wanted extra clean filtered air.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
So, one, you know me. 2, the first time I was in this building, we were meeting with your predecessor, former boss, Jane. And there was a staffer who turned to me after Jane left and said, you know, when I moved here to Monterey County, I was thinking of living over there in Salinas, but I have kids, I can't do that. Because of the exposure to pesticides. And she wasn't trying to be cruel, she was simply stating a truth that all of us in this room are aware of. I raised my children first in North Salinas, then in South Salinas, and our house is a block downwind in the fields. And so we have this toxic wood just brew of different pesticides blowing in. I retired last year after 39 years of teaching. Before that, I was house painter and dishwasher. But when I was a boy, I didn't have classmates with asthma. We heard about asthma and we knew what it was because we were smart kids. But it was this thing that was kind of theoretical. But as a teacher, I can always count several kids in my class who had asthma. And I take the kids out for PE and I have them play pom-pom so they can really get their cardiovascular systems moving. But there are always kids who'd say, you know, I can't do that. or they'd say, or their mothers would tell me, if he has an attack or if he gets short of breath, he has to stop right away. Don't make him run. Or her run. And then we've seen, it's elementary school, but I've had a student who had a brain tumor removed surgically. And when I was an out of the classroom teacher, I was hassling one of the first grade teachers, when are you going to send so-and-so over? Well, she can't come because she's in the hospital most of the time. She had bone cancer in her leg. And she was a girl who actually, when I got to test her English, was really good at English from spending so much time in the hospital. And she called her prosthetic leg, to replace the amputated leg, her robot because it would clank when she walked. She was a sweetie, but she didn't make it to 3rd grade, she died. We have a lot of birth defects, we have a lot of asthma, and of course, there's no label on every IQ point that gets lost in the Salinas Valley. It's just like, you know, see no evil, hear no evil. Everyone is just complicitly pretending it doesn't happen. Let's see, I also was on executive board at Labor Council. And Labor Council is how I got to Safe Ag Safe Schools. And I was on the State Council of California Teachers Association. There are many people of goodwill. There are many people who want a clean environment. And we understand that agriculture is the chief economic force in Salinas, and that's great, but we want it to be done in a way that doesn't profit off the harm done to the people who live in the valley, and especially the people who work in the valley. They're, of course, the hardest hit, but even the people who simply live in the valley, we don't have a way to, well, they don't have a way to get out of it. I have to confess, I'm moving out of the valley. My partner lives in Carmel, and that's where I'm moving. But it was great being your constituent. Other than the
We do
poisonous
love you
part.
on too, so.
He will still participate.
Yeah, right, thank you.
Oh, hello, my name is Miguel Torres. I'm a youth member of SASS, and I'm here because I'm worried. I'm worried about my health. I'm worried that the pesticide drift and all that, it could give me a long-term health problem like cancer or asthma. It scares me. So I'm here to find out more about that and find ways to prevent it and prevent it for others too.
And what school do you go to?
I'm from Greenfield. I go to the high
Greenfield.
school.
Okay, and
Yeah.
what year are you?
I'm gonna be an upcoming sophomore.
Going into your sophomore year?
Yeah.
And how did you get involved with that?
With SASS, through my mom, she would
With
take
your
me.
mom?
She would take me to meetings after my brother had his asthma attack due to
Okay.
pesticides. She started getting more involved, and so did I, to learn more about it and ways to prevent it for others too, and for myself.
Great. That's awesome. I mean, to be like that early in high school and be engaging and coming to meetings like this, pretty cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Alright, pass it on.
Hello, my name is Anthony Gallardo. I'm a youth member of SASS also, and I think we should expand buffer zones from 1 through D. Used around schools at least a mile from the currently legal required 1/4 of a mile. That's,
And are you also Greenfield?
yeah,
Same year?
yeah.
Okay. And how many of these meetings have you come to?
A couple,
Couple?
around like 6, 5,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. And are you involved in other, do you play sports? Are you involved in other
Yeah, I'm
things
involved
and
in
passions?
basketball for this high school.
Basketball? Okay. Awesome. You've got brothers and sisters?
Yeah, got 2 sisters and 1 brother.
Okay. Who are younger or older?
And they're all older.
All older. Okay. So you're the youngest. Okay. Cool. Thanks for coming.
No,
Hi, my name is Victor. I'm a youth member of SASS as well, and I'm going into my senior year at Greenfield High School, and I've been involved with SASS for quite a few years now, ever since, as my brother pointed out not so long ago, I had an asthma attack during my early on into my middle school year, and to say the least, it was traumatizing. It's really fuzzy, my memory of that day, but the least I could say that I could take out from that is that it's a horrifying experience, and I wanted to get more involved after learning through my mom, after she had to request a report stating what pesticides were applied that day, to which turns out 7 of those could induce asthma attacks or are problematic for asthmatics, which I happen to be. And as I said, it was horrifying. It's really something no kid should have to worry about. If they shouldn't have to be thinking about, am I going to be taken out by an ambulance? 1 minute in school, 1 minute in ambulance. So I decided to get myself more involved with SASS to find out what else I could do, what ways are there for me to really get involved and help bring awareness to what a big problem pesticides is, and especially how it's spoken of how horrible it is that we literally have these poisonous gases developed as weapons of war, sprayed directly on field workers and in close proximity to where people are living and students learning, which really is, to say the least, not good, because in Monterey County, especially southern Monterey County, Greenfield, where I come from, we have higher rates of autism, learning disabilities, and a whole plethora of health issues. And there's such a big correlation, as pointed through studies, as she mentioned earlier, Chamacos and plenty others that have pointed it out. So I'm just really passionate about bringing awareness to this issue and how we could help fix it. And personally, I really want to help promote a bigger buffer zone, as he mentioned earlier. It's currently at a quarter of a mile, but I feel it should be expanded further, as it's still way too close, and especially the high winds in the area I live at pushes them extremely close to where students are learning, where people are living, and where it just really shouldn't be. So I'm just here to advocate for that, and advocate really at the end of the day for the safety of my classmates and the people of my community.
And your kids someday.
Hmm?
And your kids someday maybe, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. I grew up in Dallas too, and it just makes a lot of things a little extra scary.
it really does.
Yeah, one more thing to think about and just be aware of and plan for and accommodate for. And, so I'm sorry to experience that in such a shocking and surprising and scary way. Thank you for being here.
No, and thank you for giving us time to hear us out and be able to address our issues. So thank you.
To the degree that we can, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the things that working with Jane for 12 years, it was this realization early on. I had worked in private industry, industrial food brokerage. So if you ate blueberry yogurt in like 2005, I probably sold some of the blueberries that were in the yogurt. It's a kind of a side world, a career that I had. But coming to work for the county, and you think, oh, you know, she got elected, like she gets to like make all the politics, she gets to like, she does the work now, like she's the one who decides. And it was very quickly that we realized, and I realized, maybe she knew, but for me it was like, oh, no, like you're 1 of 5. And even within 1 of 5, the power that the community has is so much more than any one elected official anywhere has. And it was that sort of moment where I was like, oh, ding. So anything that we ever wanted to get done, working with, when I was with Jane, like, okay, before we even put any time and energy into it, we said, where's the community group that's organized and prepared to advocate? And where's the staff champions? Because you can fight all day long, but if you don't have someone within the government system, if you don't have someone working in the county or the city, I'm looking at Monica's name, if you have someone in the space who's gonna like, you know, behind the scenes, like keep things moving, it's so much, it feels impossible to actually create the changes that just because you're elected, you're like, I've got a lot of ideas about what I want to have happen. But so I think part of what makes the work that you're doing so powerful is that you do have data to back up what you're saying. You're not crazy, like you're speaking truth. Your experience is like, it's real. It didn't not happen, it happened. And you carry that with you, and you can speak from a place that's of lived experience and authenticity, and there's power. There's so much power in that, and you can sit in spaces like this and meet with, you know, my colleagues and me, but you're also doing the work to like educate the larger community, because public will guides political will, and political will guides policy. So I appreciate and I value, like, I get paid to do the work I love, you're getting paid to do the work you love, no one else here is paid to be here to do the work that they know matters to their community. And there's power in that as well, but also limitations, because you limit who has the opportunity to engage and have their voice heard. And we know who does have money to have their voice heard, and very clearly doesn't. So early on coming into office, one of the things that I think about literally every day is during the middle of COVID, and the state reopened bars before they reopened playgrounds. Mm-hmm. I was like what? And again, there's like things you know, and then there's things once you experience it, you're like, yo, do I know this? It's like, well, who had a paid voice around that table? Whose interests? Who had the resources to pay for lobbyists to have, like, it sure wasn't moms doing, like, it sure wasn't the mothers and the parents who were stuck at home with their little ones, losing their minds, like, they were just trying to survive. But there are whole other groups of people that were, you know, had the ability to have someone sitting around that table and access in ways that, like, a mom is just not gonna have, so. I try to keep that in mind. I mean, I see it now play out in different ways, but being able to articulate that that's what's actually happening helps me remember that, you know, my job here is to be a voice for those who don't have the ability to pay to have their voice heard otherwise. So, yeah. Nice. Thank you for the comments and feedback.
My name is Luis Torres,
Yes.
member of City School. He's supporting for the bill on ABC 652. And
AB,
stop,
AB 52?
AB 652?
AB 652, okay.
and stop the pesticide 1,3D regulation. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you see, he jumped ahead of me, he
Right,
wants to
you
talk
got
about
it.
the agenda.
Your segue.
Right, so I guess we're gonna talk about why we're here, Supervisor, Askew. And I really wanna give credit to everyone that's here because they're taking time off their precious lives to be here and to continue to advocate. And I am nothing, Mark is nothing without the members. We have the 3 coalitions in Greenfield, Salinas, Watsonville, and now we're gonna start our Santa Cruz coalition and King City. So that's a lot of work for one organizer. So I'm all over the place. But there's so many important things happening right now that I constantly tell the members, like, we don't just do the work at a local level with meeting with supervisors or meeting with elected officials at, you know, different capacities like board members, council members. We're literally also working constantly with the state, and I have a lot of members here who have participated in so many hearings for these past months, and it's nonstop, like it's still gonna continue. So 3 of the things here that we're currently working on is we wanted you, Supervisor, ask you to help us with the request that our County Commissioner Hidalgo participates in the Department of Pesticide Regulation, their notification system, their second round. He participated, but when he was the commissioner for Santa Cruz, we did, so that's one of the requests, that for you just to push on his side, like saying, you know, you don't have that much power, you really can't do much, just simply suggest it would be good. You know, he comes from a county where he implemented a pilot program. If he could implement the second round here in Monterey County. But just as an FYI, we did meet with him, several of the members here present, and he said that he wouldn't do it.
He said it was expensive.
Yeah.
And we said, there's money on the table, you're leaving it on the table. He said, yeah, the state's gonna take care of it. We'll
Yeah.
just wait for the state to
It
do
was
it.
like he'd done it, check off the checklist in Santa Cruz, and he wasn't interested in addressing that in Monterey County. Like, big ball of wax for him or
Just
something.
straight, like,
No.
I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he was very straightforward, saying no. He wants to leave room for the actual notification system statewide. That's not gonna be implemented into 2024. That's if they don't push the year even further out. But he just said that why, he didn't see like why there was a reasoning behind it if we're currently moving into the whole statewide notification system. Even though we asked, you know, you did participate in the first pilot, we want you to be a part of the second pilot because Monterey County did not have that participation because of Commissioner Gonzalez. And also, we hear that the state does provide money and support to the commissioner, so there's no excuse why not to do it. But we did say that our kind of like where we were setting down the line was we wanna participate in the pilot program, but it has to have the exact location, because that was kind of like the downfall for all the notification systems that happened, the 4 that did happen throughout the state, including Santa Cruz, is that they didn't have that exact location. They were just getting bombarded. Our seniors in the Watsonville area where the notification system pilot took place, they were bombarded with different alerts, but no exact location. So that was part of our request to Commissioner Hidalgo, but he just said no. He does not see, he's too busy also, that's part of the thing he mentioned, right? He really wanted to make sure that we understood that his department is not just about pesticides. There's so many other things that he has to deal with, and we said we understand that. We even offered to meet with him to know more about his department, what is his job, what does he oversee. We didn't get an exact date or I guess a approval on his part of like, we'll meet with you. but it doesn't hurt if you could request that as a supervisor. We did also talk to him about 13D, like many of the members mentioned. And members, please chime in if you want to talk about any of these three. You want to talk about the notification pilot. 13D, we have been, like I mentioned, our members have been busy working at a state level, meeting with DPR, going to Sacramento. We just had our last hearing with DPR back in May 31st. And members could tell you for their experiences, the outcome, it wasn't that great. But we are still there with T-Loan. Like one of the members mentioned, they're not really listening to OEHA, the experts. They're basically not wanting to do what OEHA has been telling them that are the safe levels. And like Karen mentioned, there's no air monitor in Monterey County. The closest one is North Monterey County, which happens to be in Ohlone. That's it. And I think throughout the state of California, there's only 6 or 7 air monitors. And these air monitors, like the one in Ohlone, is already saying that these levels are too high. And that's part of the request and the conversation that we've been having with the state, not just Monterey SASS, but other activists and groups throughout the state of California. Currently, they are going back to the drawing board. So the last hearing that we all participated in, they're gonna go back and try to work with each other. And when I say each other, it's DPR and OEHA, that both of them fall under Cali PA. It's like they're both under Cali PA and they can't even get along with each other. But like Karen mentioned, it is because the money that comes into play, which is Dow. Dow gives a lot of money to DPR, so DPR is gonna listen to who's giving them that money, right? Josh?
What's the acronym for the environmental,
OEHA?
Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment.
For some environmental health
Hazard
hazard.
assessment.
Is that a governor appointment? Like who runs that?
California agency.
It's a
Cali-
department
Cali-
within Cali PA.
Cali PA.
And Cali PA, so the staff person?
The Cali PA
runs
does
that?
get appointed by the governor,
And
but
then
the,
they hire.
yeah, they
and
hire the
under-
employees.
Okay.
and I do have this form that I'll give you at the end,
OEHA.
Supervisor. Yeah.
And the Department of Pesticides, they get funded by the chemical company that used to be Monsanto, now it's Dow. So they're protecting the scientists that they said, okay, this is the safe label, but OEHA, the one that is protect the people of California, they're saying no, it's too high. You're gonna create a lot of mental disorders and all these sicknesses.
To the point that OEHA proposed a regulation for this T-loan, 13D, that's 7% as high as what Dow wants, and Cal EPA was about to approve. So most of us were in an online hearing, which for some reason happened in Sacramento in front of an empty hall. All these people near the fields were calling in from all over California, and they had said that there's no need to have a hearing beyond Sacramento. Who's going to show up? Well, we showed up, and 100% of the comments that I heard over a couple of hours were opposed to this lax regulation that allows 14 times as much T-loan as OEHA, their own scientists, called for. And so this is part of why we're also advocating for AB 652, because, and you know, we've had this experience. I remember a pre-pandemic experience when I was in Sacramento in the halls of Cal EPA, and the impression that we got was we were just a surprisingly different group of citizens than they normally entertain in the Cal EPA building. I imagine armies of suits from the different pesticide companies are the people who they encounter every day. So 652 is to have a citizens advisory board that's actually categorically structured to include groups like field workers, Native Californians, people who would be underrepresented in the halls of Cal
Environmental
EPA.
Justice Advisory. So
And yeah, it feels like We can't get their attention. Their own scientists can't get their attention. They need to be forced to listen to some air-breathing citizens.
And just to familiarize you with Tilon 1,3-D, it's the most common one that you see under all the tarps, that is the most prevalent chemical being used, fumigant, right? It's injected way into the ground, which creates additional risks in terms of drift. But all that's being ignored. They ignore the science of 34 European countries that have banned the chemical long ago, and just keep dismissing, you know, like going, well, it's okay, it's okay. Matter of fact, we'll allow more. And in terms of when I was telling you that they hid data for 5 years, it was from 2016 to 2021 that they didn't release any data to the state until we literally screamed at them and put them on the spot, you know, where is the data? And then they went ahead and cleaned it up and released something. But it was interesting because they released the 21 data with the 5 years prior, with the peak year being 2020. And I believe it was 209 million pounds of chemicals used in California. So they had increased it during the pandemic, not telling us what was going on. And then they waited to release data until 21, when it had gone down slightly from 209. So they were able to put out a headline, pesticide use has gone down. But, you know, it's just playing with our minds in terms of our intelligence with the data. And your average citizen is going around not even talking about a pesticide, not knowing what they're living with.
Yeah. And this is a cancer-causing pesticide. It says it on their label. So it's not like, oh, it might cause cancer. No, it is a cancer-causing pesticide, which for us is alarming. And that should have at least have them pay attention to the real expert, the scientists from OIHA. So this Tilon 1,3-D, as is known because of its brand Tilon, it is banned in 34 countries, but not in here in the U.S. Sadly, but because we all know money has its way to putting people into power. And then also, one other thing that I wanted to mention is that the whole reason why DPR and OIHA had to go back to the drawing board, it's because of the many organizations, one that obviously SASS is under, which is the Californians for Pesticide Reform. We took, when I say we, all of us, we took DPR to court. And that was the ruling of the judge, that they had to go back and work together to get these safe levels, and that was the only reason why. If nobody had said anything, if we didn't, you know, turn up to these events, to the state capitol and make sure that our voices were heard, this wouldn't have been happening. So they, again, they're working on their regulation that is gonna come out in March, so we'll see what they're doing. But right now, to be honest, like Karen mentioned, they're just being devious. They just wanna do it their way and ignore the public. The amount of public, like Josh mentioned, that was present at that committee hearing via Zoom. And so our request, we're working, fighting this giant at a state level, at a local level. Our request from you, Supervisor Askew, is basically, and we did ask Hidalgo about this as well, it was to immediately web post notices of intent, specifically on 1,3-D applications, because he already has that from the growers, and he could easily put it on real time to the entire county. That was one. The second one was basically to restrict the 1,3-D approvals to keep the air concentration levels below OIHA's cancer warning level of 0.04 parts per billion. And thirdly was to expand buffer zones, like Anthony had mentioned, of 1,3-D around schools to at least 1 mile. We did bring these requests, and basically, Josh or anybody tell me what Commissioner Hidalgo said when we requested these things.
He said he didn't want to get people scared, and we were offended.
Yeah.
We feel that we can have the emotions that we want to have, but we want to base our emotions on true information, not concealment of information.
And I specifically asked him, was he okay with the fact that they removed the air monitor from Salinas? And it was pretty much a blank face, no response. So everything was diverted back to, well, the state, I answered to the state, and the state says this, and so He's kind of the state's puppet, in my opinion.
The Ohlone monitor, you know where Ohlone School is, gets a lot of fresh air off the bay. And it still has been registering many levels that are multiples of the OEHA limit. And the OEHA limit isn't them saying, below this level, there will be no cancers. It says below this level, we can expect only one cancer per 100,000. What a coincidence. How many people live in Monterey County? How many people live in Salinas? And that's one poison. And that's per year. So even the OEHA limit, willing to sacrifice 1 or 2 Salinans per year. And then there are all the other poisons. So to go over that limit seems really bad. That's a technical word. Bad. We don't want it to happen.
And just as an FYI, that last hearing that we had, where everybody was in support and nobody spoke why this was such a good thing, right? We were all connected via Zoom. We had watch parties throughout the state, and specifically our SASS members had a watch party in Ohlone at that elementary, and just to see the faces of the parents of the children being ignored, saying, you know, we don't care if your child is being poisoned or is being exposed to, you know, developing cancer in the future. It was just kind of like a slap in the face, that slap in the face that we're used to getting all the time. But we're proud of all the SASS members that spoke up and said enough is enough. And so we're working on it, and that would be our ask locally that you could do. I mean, just as a courtesy email to Commissioner Hidalgo, even though we already know his answer, but it wouldn't hurt to hear from you. And this is the same request that we asked Supervisor Lopez and Supervisor Alejo and Supervisor Church. So that's currently our issue with 13D. And now our third thing that we wanted to talk to you about was what they have been mentioning. And I am really proud of the members, Supervisor Askew, because SASS, you see them all here, and like I mentioned, there's so many SASS members. They are co-sponsoring a bill. We know that there's not a lot of work that we could do locally. At the state level, we have to push buttons as well. And this bill is AB 652, which Mr. Torres also mentioned. And the bill's author is Assemblymember Lee from the San Jose area.
I was asking, Alex Lee?
Yeah, Alex Lee.
Okay.
And, you know, we and you're really good friends with him, so thank you for that. Let him know that we are very thankful of his leadership. And one of the questions that we did get from one of your colleagues was why an assembly member from an area that doesn't have predominantly ag, you know, industries. And our response, members, I don't know if anybody wants to chime in, but it was basically nobody else wanted it. We did talk to Assembly Member Rivas, Speaker Rivas now. We did talk to Caballero, and Assembly Member Rivas' offices is just bombarded because of his transitioning. So that's the only reason. He was the author. Assembly Member Lee was the one that said, I will be the author.
Okay.
I got this, yes.
Does he have any co-sponsors yet?
He does. From our region, Addis is a co-author. So CPR, Californians for Pesticide Reform, are co-sponsors. PAN, which is also the Pesticide Action Network, and Safe Ag Safe Schools were all co-sponsors. But co-authors, we've been getting a lot of sign-ons because it has been going through different committees. We just went through the Senate hearing not too long ago for the environmental toxics. It passed, but right now it's currently moving into the Senate Appropriations Committee. But so far, it has been going really good. We have been, as it's moving forward, we're getting a lot of opposition from, obviously, the growers because of just not wanting to have this group of members, like Josh mentioned, that are gonna be at the table having these discussions. And everybody has been asking why it is so bad to not have this group. It's long overdue. There's already boards for water, for the water board, for different agencies. Why not something that, you know, has to do with pesticides? And it's simply gonna be an advisory board. It's not gonna have any power of like making regulations. It's gonna work with DPR to make sure that, hey, by the way, this 13D is not working for our community, it's affecting our community in the long run. And so it is gonna consist of a 10 to 15 member board, and like Josh mentioned, it's gonna have that representation from even small farmers, native tribes, or indigenous population, and activists. So any of our SASS members could participate in that committee that will meet 4 times a year. I know in the beginning DPR was having a lot of opposition, saying that it was gonna cost over $1 million just to have this committee. So when we did meet with DPR back when we went to the equity on the mall event, we had a meeting with Julie Hendrickson from DPR, and one of our SASS members couldn't be here, Noemi Chico, she's also one of the teachers in one of our Salinas schools. She compared it to, well, why are you guys saying that it's gonna cost over $1 million? Are you planning on having these meetings at Mar-a-Lago? And obviously everybody started laughing except DPR, they didn't appreciate that. But it's true, because we're saying only 4 meetings per year, that's all. I mean, it's not much, but it's something. And I'm just so proud I'm so proud of this bill, our author, and obviously our members, SASS, that are making it happen, bringing this bill forward.
And I just have one other thought too, and thank you for bringing all of that out. Several of us in Salinas have reported drifts, or potential drifts, and without result. And I've reported it, I think 3 times, each time was on a Saturday. It appears that the majority of all the spraying takes place on Saturday or Sunday.
Good.
Yet the office is conveniently closed Friday at 5 until Monday morning. And so when you report a drift, you're referred on their voicemail to 911. So on one of those drifts, 911 got back with me and said, we have had several people report something and we're gonna check into this and we'll let you know. Well, they came back telling me that they had investigated and it was supposedly a gas drift coming from the 152, an end case. Well, I've smelled gas before in a gas leak. I've smelled toxins and poisons, and this was like walking into a pesticide store, for lack of a better, experience. But nothing is done, because by Monday morning when they go and check it out, oh, everything's fine. Our investigator went out there, everything's fine, what are you talking about? So I'm sure you would double ditto with your drift experience. But
On mine, they sent someone out who spoke to the applicator, and the applicator said, I'm following procedures, so they closed the case. But we could smell it. It was pesticide in our yards and homes.
That's why it's so needed that we have this advisory committee, right? So we could be able to share that, because there's not, in other words, all ag commissioners are not working at the same level or are listening to the right people. Each commissioner does whatever it wants at every county. That's something that we've been seeing across the table. So by having an advisory committee, we would be able to bring these stories forward, that whatever is happening in Monterey, it might not just be Monterey, it might be Kern, it might be, Tulare County, that this has been happening. And, oh my God, I had something that I wanted to talk to you about, the bill, and it completely lost.
Who told us they don't answer the supervisors? You did.
Right. One thing that I want to share, Supervisor Askew, is that Supervisor Cummings did bring he brought a resolution forward about 2 weeks ago to the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors, passing a letter of support and making sure that Senator Laird supported the bill once it gets to his desk. And so we're hoping that maybe you could take that initiative. We did bring it forward to Assembly Member, why am I confusing? To Supervisor Lopez and Supervisor Alejo. None of them have done anything. I do want to say that, and it's probably going to be surprising to the SASS members, is that we have a list, and I'm going to have to forward you that email of all the different agencies that are supporting this bill and individuals. And the last list that we got updated before it went to the Senate hearing, Supervisor Alejo has signed on, which I was surprised, but he has signed on to the bill. Yes.
Which guy?
I mean, that's a testament to like what you're doing. That's
Does anybody want to share how many people were connected in the Zoom meeting with
What time is it?
Alejo?
Yeah,
2:20. Okay.
we've been here an hour.
I'm gonna
55.
have to, we've got like 10 minutes, because I've gotta be in Salud. Okay, perfect, yeah. So sorry, continue.
We had a Zoom.
20, wasn't it 2 dozen, maybe?
Yeah.
There were a lot of us with Mr. Alejo. So,
So he was shocked,
What,
right?
yeah, we got his back up against the wall.
I know we're running out of time, but pesticides, they killing the aquatic life through the river, through the creeks, and they end up at our
Sanctuary.
sanctuary. And there's a lot of data where they have seen otters and sea lions that they have the pesticides and the herbicides inside their bodies. So it's not only that people are getting hurt, but also the living things that support the environment and the ecosystems. And if we want to have a beautiful Monterey County, it will be a good idea to start teaching farmers good practices that need to be implemented in order to protect the people and the environment. So we need monitoring, air monitoring, so we can see the damage that is being done, because these air monitors, especially in places where you mix different chemicals and where you have crops that uses 3 or 4 more times the other crops, that's where we need them, so we can know exactly what is the maximum level of contamination that we're exposing the people and that we're exposing the aquatic life. So we need to have some type of air monitor in the Salinas Valley, so we can see how much damage are doing. Even though when I was a farmer, I'm still farming, but and now I'm doing cover crops to pull all the nitrogen out and to cure the soil. The worst part is for me to go and spray for the pest that is going to damage the crop, and not go and tell my neighbor, hey, you got to move out, you got to hide yourself. It's not happening. They're doing it because they get the permit from the Monterey County Agriculture Commissioner, and they don't care whoever's on the side, on the right, or behind, and the air changes. So we need some type of protection to the people and the environment.
I'm just wondering if you're familiar with the case of the whistleblowers that's still pending. Came out a while back that there were a couple of...
Monterey County?
Yeah, I'll try to send it to you, or you could Google it. But there were people that were working for large farming organizations that came forth to say that they were ordered to dump toxic chemicals in unsafe places, near rivers and so forth. So who knows how much of that is going on too.
I'd love to read more about that. And before I have to run, there's, as you're talking, I was just sort of taking notes and like brainstorming thoughts. So a handful of things I'm going to toss back at you for potential, like on the list of things to think about. So the county has a sustainability director position, and we're working on our climate action plan, which is, these things all kind of fit together, right? So we're talking about, climate change, and we're talking about greenhouse gas emissions. Our county general plan from 2010 requires as an EIR mitigation that we complete a greenhouse gas emissions inventory and adopt a climate action plan. So our sustainability coordinator had moved. Anyway, we're hiring for a new sustainability coordinator, and in our meeting on Tuesday, we increased the level of the position from a coordinator to a director level position. So stay tuned, and we'd love your help helping us advertise that position and then engaging in that work as it continues. I'd love to say the county has a legislative platform as well, and I've scoured through it in a number of different areas. I haven't scoured through it on this particular point, but it may be worth just pulling it up and seeing if there's any language in that legislative platform that speaks to 652, that speaks to sort of any of these broader issues. Because once language is in that legislative platform, the county legislative committee can just simply submit requests for support letters or opposition letters directly through the county's lobbyists. And there's a lot of power in that document that I don't think anyone uses to its fullest extent. In regards to the Ag Commissioner, the budget book does have a pretty comprehensive summary of the different responsibilities that fall in that office. So I know meeting with him, yes, ask for the meeting, but also, pull that up and you can kind of see like some of the other things and follow their budget and where their funding is coming from and how they're expending it. The environmental justice element of the general plan, the county is, we have that on our planning project list for this coming planning cycle. So I would make sure that you're on the mailing list for the county's environmental justice general plan element work. I'm assuming that's what the city was working on too. I mean, I think it said somewhere in here that it was our environmental justice general plan element that they were trying to draft. So we're going to be required to have something, and it's going to be required to have community input. So track those issues. What else do I have here? The county has an ag to the ag buffer zones. So the county's been working on it. I need to go do more research about this, but an ag mitigation planning plan. I'm assuming you've been involved in that or have heard about that. I can forward you the link to the page. This goes back a number of years. The issue came up at our last LAFCO meeting because there are overlaps between the county has agreements with some of our South County cities around what annexations will look like, what buffer zones look like, what ag conservation looks like if you're expanding out. But LAFCO is ultimately the one, so like with Salud Ag where we approved an annexation, the buffer zones, the conservation doesn't have to match what this MOU is that the county had previously. So I'm wanting to pay more attention. I think we all need to be paying more attention to the county's ag mitigation planning program because that will define, I think, some of the guidelines that all development uses. So when we're talking about annexations and you've got to add schools in, what are the required conservation zones that are put in place? Where can you locate a school? Is the school easiest to locate on the outskirts of town where it's adjacent to, ongoing productive land? Or is it, moved? Like, how do all those things fit together?
And then just as a quick note, I was asked if I wanted to go teach at a new school that was being built.
Yeah.
And my question to them was,
Where's it built?
where's the environmental cleanup? And the response that I got was there was no environmental, it wasn't required, it wasn't needed. But you look at the tons of pesticides that were used on those strawberries, I chose to stay at the school that I'm at because I didn't want to expose myself to a site that had no environmental cleanup. You're putting in Monterey County new schools in former ag fields that people are making decisions that, it doesn't warrant an environmental cleanup when tons of pesticides have been used. That puts the county in liability when people start getting sick.
So I think some of that conversation is happening in this aggregation planning space. I don't know, I have not been, I have just a very general summary, but I will send the link. Just like take a look at that. And then just this broad statement of, we have a lot of commissions and we have a lot of elected officials, we have city councils, we have water districts and parks districts and school boards. And for many of the meetings that I sit in, they're a combination of elected officials, LAFCO is a combination of elected officials from other special districts. And I just urge everyone, watch for those opportunities, go get a copy of the elections department list of elected officials, figure out every one of the appointed elected seats within your jurisdiction, and be really intentional about supporting people who are going to be a voice of community into those roles, because it's not just the city council and the county board of supervisors, it's all of these other bodies where really big important decisions are being made, LAFCO being a significant one. I really appreciate you guys all coming all the way to Marina for finding the office, and I again apologize about that mix-up in timing. One of the other things I'm pushing really hard on, and we did last year, was with the National Association of Counties. I sit on the Health Policy Committee, and so reproductive rights was an issue that I wanted to make sure was included on our national platform. They told me it couldn't be done. That's a too hot topic, too controversial of a topic. So, we talk about controversial topics, we talk about things where they say like it's not possible, there's not support. NACO, National Association of Counties, is a very conservative organization. No one's gonna support you, you're gonna have a target on your back forever. Well, if I'm gonna be there, why am I gonna be there if I'm not there to do the work and say the things? And so we did, and we were able to push that resolution forward, and it was adopted by the full board. And it was because of coalition building, it was because, we just, like, standing in line in the bathroom, talk to another woman, and she's like, oh, I'll go get my state, and we'll come and be ready to, like, fight for this. So there is so much power in the organizing and in being willing to say things that are true, even when you're looking at powerful spaces where you don't feel like there's a chance forward. So I just, anyway, so I was putting, we're gonna fight for it again this year, and I had that meeting just now, so. Anyway, I just.
That sounds directly like Chimacos.
It's, like.
Reproductive rights.
Right?
Yeah.
Being healthy.
Yeah. Well, in counties, we've got, we take care of people.
Yeah.
Well, if you ever need us for anything, just have Nelly, and she will shoot us an email.
Perfect. Yeah. We'll definitely. And then I will. I just want to read this before I sign anything.
Yeah.
And so we just give you a chance to read through it, and then I'll follow up and.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much.